How's it going, everybody? Arbitrary Hayden here, and we are back at it again with another pistol-only challenge in the Halo series. Now, last time I was full-fledged into Halo 2, one of my favorite Halo games. We're back at it with Halo 3 ODST, my second favorite Halo game. I loved it because of the atmosphere, the soundtrack, just everything that was a part of it really contributed to a very different Halo experience. Typically, you're playing as a Spartan. Well, now we are playing as one of the infamous members of Alpha 9, I believe, which is an ODST team renowned for their hardcore success throughout all of the campaign. So here we are starting off as the rookie. Now I am playing on legendary difficulty, which is a major difference from Halo 2. In Halo 2, I was playing on heroic difficulty because I didn't want to drive myself insane. This time around, I didn't really care as much. When it comes to Halo 3 ODST, I feel like I can run it just a little bit better. There are a few more things in my favor. So here I am, back at it on legendary difficulty. Now, I did get smacked around quite a bit during this challenge, so you're going to see a lot of moments, especially with the brutes, where I am just getting absolutely obliterated. But in these sections where we've got more grunts, more jackals, a few more things without any, or a few more members of the Covenant without any shields, made it a lot easier to just kind of speed through those sections. So especially as the rookie, you're going to see me speeding through Mombasa streets at nighttime. So now we're on to playing as Buck. That first section was super quick, like I said. Here, playing as Buck, I was just trying to pick off as many of these grunts as I could from the top of this ridge, and then we were continuing on. This mission wasn't too difficult for about the first 2/3 of it, and as we continue on, you'll see the section that I struggled with the most, which was the open courtyard with the snipers, the hunters, the brutes. It was extremely difficult to make it through. A couple other things I want to mention for this challenge. In case anybody forgot the rules, here they are. I can only use the pistol for this entire playthrough. Melee is included as a part of that to pistol whip enemies. I cannot use any grenades. Vehicles are all right for me to utilize as long as I'm only driving. I'm not using any of the vehicle weapons. And then I cannot kill teammates for extra ammo. So in this case, when my teammate goes down, if he were to drop a pistol there, I could pick it up at that point, but I cannot be the one to just basically shoot him in the face and then take his pistol or take his ammo. I can swap weapons with allies, just cannot take it from them by killing them. In this section here, I was a little bit worried about some of the jackal snipers and some of the jackals with the carbines, but it actually went by pretty smoothly. The next section is where things got really hairy. Even playing on legendary difficulty without only using the pistol, this next section is tough. So I had to kind of plan it out, map it out. In my head, my first thought was, all right, we just got to go for the snipers. If we can take out the jackals, it'll be smooth sailing from there. Lo and behold, that was not the case. I forgot that there are about 5 or 6 brutes that have something different to say about that. I was able to take out the jackals pretty quickly here, but then we're moving on to the more difficult section. So from here, I was just trying to figure out, okay, what's going to be the best method? What am I going to do? And before I could even think, there was a checkpoint that was not so great that I got right here by this pillar. So you're going to see me die right here a handful of times. I got smacked around, shot, beat down quite a bit here. And so it was just a lot of trial and error figuring out, could I use the catwalk? Could I sprint? Could I do something different? Then I got to the hunters and they decided to also have their way with me. There was a section here where coming up soon here, I was just thinking, all right, I made it. You do not want to turn your back to the hunters because this is what happens. You get lasered right in the back. Second time around, I decided to stare them down, keep going, wait for that door to close, wait for them to turn away, and then I was able to jump down to take out these couple of grunts to finish the mission. And then we were back at it again as the rookie. So coming back to the Mombasa streets as the rookie, we were continuing our journey. And as we continued forward, there's going to be a section here of the soundtrack, which I just have to highlight. I absolutely love it. It's just these nighttime cityscape vibes, warning to headphone users. Here we go. absolutely love those vibes. It's just one of those soundtracks that sticks with you. Honestly, in some of the later sections here, where I'll also highlight the soundtrack, I will blast this in my car over the speakers. Like I absolutely love the Halo 2, the Halo 3 ODST soundtrack, and most of the Halo soundtracks for that matter. We're moving on to Dutch now, and as I was just kind of thinking and scoping out, like, all right, what's going to be the best option here? It was mostly just let's hop into the Warthog, let's just go for it, because there are very few pistols on this level. Now, in later run-throughs or other Halo games, let me know if you'd like to see me skip using the vehicles, because although it could take a little bit longer, it might make it a little bit more fair and justified as a true pistol-only challenge. I relied heavily on my allies during these sections and was just trying to gear them up with the power weapons, things that were going to suit them best. So you'll see a lot of swapping of the fuel rod guns, a lot of just making sure that my allies are going to have the best weapons possible to mow through the enemies here. Now, I had a little bit of a whoopsie here, tipped over the Warthog, couldn't get back on our feet, couldn't get my allies back in, and we were just basically gearing ourselves up to explode over and over again. Second time around, decided to just sprint through it, did not hit that little curb there, killed the grunt that killed me last time just for that added satisfaction, and we were ready to continue to move on from there. To be honest, I was a little bit worried about this section here with the Wraiths, and although we did lose a passenger, we were able to continue to move on from there. Going over the bridge, got to get a little bit of health back in me, and then we were ready to move on. Now, these turrets coming up on the ridge were the absolute bane of my existence. I struggled with this a couple of times. You'll see those couple of deaths here that we gathered up and racked up. But from there, once I got my allies just basically do his job, take him out, we were able to move on to another main section with more Wraiths, more Marines that are struggling behind this ridge. I was able to get some more health, get into a new Warthog, and we were moving on to the end of the mission. From here, it was just a quick jaunt over. I was able to dive through the hole in the wall. And we get to watch Dutch biff it. Now we're back as the rookie again. We were able to basically skirt through the Mombasa streets with very few problems, just taking out jackals, grunts along the way, try to avoid the brutes as much as possible. Now in this section here, there are snipers that can spawn in these catwalks up above, so if you see me jumped around looking at that, that's what I was waiting for, and lo and behold, there was one at the end ready to ruin my day. Luckily, I got the shot off first, and we were able to move on to this very, very quiet section where I was just trying to avoid the hunters as much as possible. Did not completely avoid them. They did spot me. There are times where you can make it through that section, and over the years, I have not figured out what the difference is, if it's just the way I move through it, if it's the difficulty, just extra awareness playing on Legendary, but unlike the hunters earlier in the video that I struggled with, I was able to skirt past them and move on, stared them down so I didn't get shot in the back, and we were ready for the next section here. Playing as Mickey in this next part was, it was just a lot of, it was a lot of tough waiting, a lot of tough trial and error just over and over again. My first thought was, let's just move past the Scorpion tank as fast as I can to get to this ghost here, because I thought if I can boost past everything, it's going to save my bacon. Now, if he had not hit that light post, probably would have been fine just the first time around. Second time around, I decided, you know what? Let's go ahead. Let's take out the Wraith first, because it did ruin our day a little bit in the first run through. So decided to take that out. And then we were trying again. Was unsuccessful the second time. Third time around, I was able to boost and take this ghost. Now I skirted through pretty fast here. I was able to run over quite a few enemies. And I waited in this section here for the door to finally open, and we were moving on. This right here was one of the worst sections that I believe I experienced in the entire run through. It was, again, just a lot of repetitiveness, a lot of just seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, watching Mickey get exploded over and over and over again, waiting for the wraiths to just kind of ruin my day. And eventually we get to a point where, after getting completely slaughtered time and time again, I decided the best thing to do was to rush up to Dutch. He did mention, he ran out of rockets. That's why we're kind of panicking here. So I gave him the rocket launcher and decided, you know what, let's see what magic he can pull. Now, there were a lot of stupid deaths here, like getting shot by mortar tanks from a ways away, or wraiths getting shot by brute shots from a mile away. But then finally, Dutch works his magic, and he is able to take out the wraiths, which is the trigger for us to move on to the next section here. I was just waiting patiently, and then we were able to move on to the main courtyard here at the end, where once we take out all the waves of enemies, we are then moving back to the rookie's perspective. Now, as soon as this wraith dropped, I wanted to make sure that we took it out. From there, it was a lot of just making sure that the waves of enemies were being managed. But there were quite a few sections here where I got stuck in a corner, where I got on like the lowest amount of health possible. This was not good, followed by a checkpoint, which you may have seen there just for a split second. And so I was having to go back and forth with this very, very minuscule amount of health, but I was able to pick up a health pack and take out the last few enemies to finish Mickey's perspective. Once we got to this final section, and once I allowed one more Marine to bite the dust, I met back up with Dutch. We finished up Mickey's perspective, and then we were back to the rookie's perspective, those classic nighttime vibes. Once we were back at it again as the rookie, I waited and watched as we had a couple of jetpack brutes and a couple of jackals drop down here. I tried to take out the jackals from afar because they do have beam rifles, which can absolutely ruin your day. Took them out here, skimmed past the jetpack brutes because I really did not care. Got jump scared there by another sniper in the next section. But once that was over, we were able to move on to the main area where we could find our next hint. Now, I did cut through the building right here just to avoid a majority of the enemies. They followed me to where I was, which was great, because once I popped through this door here, I was able to open up this next hallway, or this next section. I don't know really what you want to call it. It's kind of a hallway, kind of a, not really a bridge, but just a tunnel. There we go. That's the English word I wanted to use. Once I took out the enemies in the tunnel, we found our next hint. Now we're back again from Dutch's perspective. Get some heavy weapons, which in a normal run through, which would be fantastic, but this is a pistol only run through. So I could not use any of my weapons right here, had to wait until I blew the bridge and watch that magic happen to then go on to the next courtyard where we're fighting through waves of enemies. I pick up a pistol from my ally, and now we were moving and grooving. Got to watch as many enemies just exploded, as many of my allies went down. I tried to give my power weapons to my allies to no avail. Lots of explosions, and that was really the main bulk of this level. Explosions, taking out hunters, taking out the primary enemies, which more often than not were brutes. And more often than not, it was a brute shot to the back that ruined my day. Down here, I kind of waited towards the back for a lot of these sections, just picking off enemies where I could, letting Mickey do a majority of the work, and watching as the wraiths were there in the back, making sure that I wasn't just going to get a mortar shell to the face. Eventually, the doors opened and we were moving to the interior here. wave after wave of kamikaze grunts were coming through those doors. But the good news is the majority of the work was completed by Mickey and my allies again. So giving them the power weapons, just doing what I needed to do, giving Mickey a rocket launcher, it all worked out in my favor. So I got to sit back and just kind of pick off a few enemies here and there, trying to use my ammo sparingly. In this main interior section, the good news was there were a couple of pistols where I could pick up ammo time and time again. And then we had phantoms coming in. Now, phantoms made things a little bit more difficult because there are a handful of not only grunts and jackals, things I can easily pick off, but we had a couple of brute shot brutes, for lack of better terms. And so those brute shots, I think at one point there were 3 or 4 of them all grouped up. So it was a lot of me just going back and forth so many times, waiting for Mickey to take him out with the rocket launcher. And what was really, really cool about that is Mickey decided to just kind of wait out in the back, like right here. Didn't take any shots. It was just a lot of me trying to coerce the brutes to move to a certain section where Mickey could get a shot off. But at this section here, I just kind of waved around these pillars, bided my time, was able to take out the last couple of brutes. Moving on then to the elevator, I was just waiting for allies to take out the buggers or the drones that will come up through here. As I fired those first few shots and saw that my aim was absolutely awesome, I decided at that point, you know what, let's leave it to the professionals. I'm gonna let the AI take them out. I got stuck right here in this nice little pavilion, just minding my own business. Thought I was gonna actually have a clutch moment here where I took out a couple of these guys, and then I got one plasma bolt to the back, which reminded me that we were playing on legendary difficulty. At that point, I let the chieftain go after the AIs in the back, and then I was just here mowing down as many of the jetpack brutes as I could. Was able to backsmack quite a few of them. Then we had this guy down here, and I used the rest of my ammo to take him out. Now in legendary difficulty, it takes a good like 50 shots to take out a brute with full shields, so luckily I was able to take him out and tried to blow up that trip mine to no avail. Again, showcasing my expert aim and abilities during legendary difficulty. Back at it as the rookie, we were moving back through the streets of Mombasa, looking for our next clue, our next hint that was going to showcase the fate of the rest of my team. And as we continued on, I was smart enough to remember that there are jackal snipers that continue to spawn throughout this area again, specifically 3 of them. There were 2 down low, 1 up high that I did not see until right here. Luckily, his shots were blocked by the ridge, and so I was able to take him out. Now, down below in this courtyard, there are mongooses or mongoose. Don't know what the plural of mongooses is. Leave it down in the comments below to correct me. I'm just going to say mongooses. So as I took one of the mongooses, whatever, I used that to just skirt through the rest of these sections here, skipped over it, tried to avoid as many of the enemies as I could since I'm using a mirror pistol. Thought twice about trying to mow over the hunter here because I don't think that would have been successful. And then I was able to find my next clue, this bent out of shape sniper rifle from Romeo. And that was our next section here from Romeo's perspective. The good news here is that Romeo was equipped with a sniper rifle and a pistol right from the get-go, so I was able to give the sniper rifle to Buck. We were going on from there. Now, Buck did not really utilize the sniper rifle very much. I got stuck in the first initial section here, which was just telling me how great this mission was going to go. So a lot of this was just picking off the grunts that were time and time again trying to get into the turrets, trying to just evade me, run around, throw grenades at me. And as always, as I like to run headstrong into things, I was going to die over and over again with that strategy. But eventually I'm able to follow the brutes around, get a couple of back smacks, and move on to the rest of the mission. Now here with these jackals, with these grunts, it was just a lot of rinse and wash, rinse, repeat. Had a couple of jackals up on the ridge, and so they were easily taken out with the pistol. Then we had more waves of brutes. This section here was a lot of going up and down the staircases, a lot of making sure I wasn't going to get shot in the back time and time again. But eventually, I was able to spam the pistol and take out those couple of brutes. We had some more jackals with beam rifles. Now, as you saw a second ago, there were a couple of jackals that snuck out and sprinted away. Usually they will come back just to shoot you right in the back, but for whatever reason, they did not come back. They just hung out in the upper sections, did not return. So I was able to move on to bigger and better enemies. Took out as many of the jackals as I could from afar, and there is a section over on the other side of this little exterior landing pad, I guess maybe you want to call it, or just kind of exterior skyscraper, where you can go through this little tunnel here, bait enemies in, and that was the name of the game, just waiting for him to come to me. Then we had the chieftain up top here. I was just praying that he wasn't going to shoot that fusion coil next to me, but I was able to avoid him, jump down, kill a couple of grunts, and move back out to the exterior where we were going to use a pillar as a makeshift bridge or catwalk to get to the rest of our Marines and allies. Now, as I cannot use any other weapons besides my pistol, this section was slightly anticlimactic for me. My allies were killing it, and so I just basically waited for them to strip shields, do what they needed to do, and then I would get a lot of headshots. I was taking a lot of piddly shots at the phantoms here, so I didn't feel useless. But here's another section of the soundtrack that I absolutely love, so another warning to y'all. Doesn't that just get the blood pumping? Like, this section here is one of my absolute favorites in Halo 3 ODST. Just taking out waves upon waves of enemies. And normally when I run this, I'm using one of the fuel rod guns, or excuse me, not fuel rod guns, missile pods, to just have a stationary infinite ammo area where I can just take out a ton of the phantoms, a ton of the banshees, get maximum points. It's great. As we took out the last few jetpack brutes here, we then made it to the very end where unfortunately Romeo gets a stab to the chest, does survive, but we were going back to the rookie's perspective from there. Back with it as the rookie, I just had to locate my mongoose, and we were able to speed on to the next section. This was a little bit difficult here because there is a phantom that comes in immediately and tries to take a few shots at you. But once you get past that, you can really skirt past the majority of what's going on here. Try not to get sniped out of your mongoose, and we were already there. On to our next hint, playing again from Buck's perspective. Now, in this next section, playing as Buck, as you all well know, this is a section that you have to use the Banshee to get around. But as I cannot use weapons, as I cannot use the main Banshee guns, the bombs, nothing like that, it was all going to be based on my splattering skills. So as I took out a few of the first initial waves of enemies with the pistol, I was then trying to strategize, okay, how was I going to be able to use the Banshee as a battering ram? Because it, compared to, let's say, a ground-based vehicle, just adds a whole different element to the game. So I took out a handful of the remaining enemies here so that Mickey could get into the Phantom. And then my strategy was just, let's mow it over. Let's make it happen. Worked very well until I got to this upper ledge here where I thought, all right, let's take out a few of these enemies with the pistol. Not the right move, not the right strategy. So then it was a lot of repeating again, trying to figure out, all right, well, what did I do wrong? And the answer was all of it. This was a complete crapshoot where I just kept dying over and over again, could not replicate what I did the first time around. I was getting really upset in this section. So then I thought, what if I go over to the side here, skirt around, try to pick off some enemies that spawn down here towards the bottom. That ended up working because for whatever reason, once I hopped back into my Banshee, none of the other enemies spawned. So I was able to open up this door here. We were on our way. Now there are a handful of enemies that spawn right here, so I just tried to skirt through it, avoid getting shot. The door will open automatically, which was my saving grace, and we're moving on to the next section. Here, I just basically flew all the way to the end where I could open up the next door. Was not wasting any time waiting for the rest of my team in the Phantom, and then I got obliterated here by another Phantom. Here, I waited like a remora on top of a shark for this next door to open up because I figured out that just staying on top of it ensured that I wasn't going to get shot by anything above or below. And then we get to the section here where the door gets jammed. I thought that by shooting a couple of these power cells and trying to take out the turrets as best as I could, I was employing the best strategy. Not the case. And then I was getting stuck time and time again with other enemies taking over that turret, trying to sprint through, trying to ensure that I wasn't going to get shot or obliterated in the process. Did not work out the first couple of times. So then at the bottom of that staircase, I figured out I could bait the enemies. So I waited for them to go down, waited for them to kind of do their little animations here, took them out. And then as I continued to bait them, the more I killed the brutes down in this section, the more brutes followed, the more they continued to just go down to where I was. So once I figured that out, I decided, all right, let's continue to move on here. I was able to skip past the cloaked brutes, and then I was just dealing with a chieftain and a couple of them up here. I don't know how I didn't die there from that brute shot, but this chieftain I knew was going to kind of ruin my strategy if I did not open the door quickly. So was able to open the door, get some health, and there he is again, just waiting for me at the bottom. Again, don't know how I did not get absolutely destroyed right here, but I let him just kind of sprint around, go through one of his animations here, smacked him in the back, and we're moving on to the Scarab. The Scarab was not too bad. And after a few punches, a few smacks, we were moving back down to where my Banshee landed down below, flying as fast as I could so I did not explode. And then we get to the final tunnel here where you have to blow up these what are called quote-unquote squid houses by the rest of your team. You cannot explode these with the pistol. I gave it my best shot, so this was one exception where I did have to use the guns on my Banshee to take out the squid houses. It was the only time you're going to see me use vehicle weapons here, but technically speaking, were there any engineers inside the squid houses? Who knows? I'm going to say no so that I can continue with my streak of not using anything other than the pistol to kill enemies. Now we just had to sprint over to the mongoose and then use the mongoose to drive to the final section here where we're going to continue to play as the rookie for a good portion. Now moving to the underground section to save Dare, I was just trying to sprint as fast as I could to the tunnel where I can rappel down to where Dare is. Dare, if you don't know, is the lead of this team. For all of the game, you're trying to find clues to locate the rest of your team. And so here we were locating our leader. She had gone underground for a secret mission that we, as the rest of the team, did not know about. And so as we're trying to locate her, it was just, again, a lot of watch, rinse, repeat. Killing the grunts, killing the jackals, very few brutes along the way, which was great. And then we get to these looping, winding hallways where I was trying to use my environment, use the fusion coils, use everything that I could to my advantage to help out with the very few tough enemies that were here through those looping hallways. We meet up with this corrupt cop. Now, again, for those that may not know the story, this corrupt cop here, you don't really know about or hear about until this point. As you go through all of the nighttime excursions playing as the rookie, you can find what are called audio logs, and those audio logs give you hints to the bigger story, to the bigger picture. There is another side story kind of running on in the background where before your team actually made it to the city, it was already falling apart. There was a lot of corruption, and then the Covenant coming to invade the city just made it that much worse. Well, part of that corruption was the police force. Not exactly the guys you wanted having your back. This police officer that we met up with is part of that team. And so a lot of the other members of his unit, a lot of the other members of the police force were subsequently killed either by other citizens as they found out that they were corrupt or by the Covenant. Either way, the rest of this guy's team were gone. He was the last surviving member, and his job from the police commissioner was to go and find a scientist that was trying to reverse all of basically what was happening here with the Covenant invasion. There was an engineer that this scientist was trying to locate, and the police were just trying to basically hold their power, ensure that no one else was going to take the glory. So this police officer was charged with finding that scientist. Now, as we continue on here, that bigger picture will become more apparent. Typically in this section here, when you drop down, this data stack will plug the hole again, and that police officer will get killed. However, I have found all of the audio files, and so we're reaching areas where, again, I am running out of ammo. As just a quick little highlight, but since I got all of the audio files in my run through of Halo 3 ODST previously, the police officer will actually follow you. He will not get killed immediately, which will lead you to kind of a really cool portion of the story, which we'll see here in just a second. But enough of the history, the lore. You can all play the game for yourself, see that in action. But as we continue on through kind of these frozen sections here of the underground tunnels, the brutes actually did not pose much of a threat if I let the police officer get their attention. So jumping back to a little bit of the lore, this section right here is where the police officer will take a detour. Now, it kind of gets this ominous vibe. He starts yelling at the AI that's running the city. You're kind of figuring out, okay, what's going on here? Well, in this section here, the scientist that I mentioned earlier sacrifices himself so that way the city can continue on, his daughter can escape, and everybody else in the city has a chance to survive. Now, the police officer gets angry that you found the evidence and all of the audio logs basically showcasing that they are a corrupt police force. So now you get the chance to kill the officer that was going to bait you into this room and kill you. Even on legendary difficulty, as you can see, not too difficult to clean up the trash. We were then moving on to this final room before you get to Dare to rescue her, the leader of your team. Now, I was waiting behind this glass because I only had 3 shots left in my pistol. So, as I found out, you can't just wait behind this glass and the enemies will keep coming over just to kind of investigate, see like, oh, did he disappear? However, there were a couple of times where I got stuck, where enemies came from both sides and it did not go well. Tried to charge in because, again, with only 3 shots, couldn't really do much. Second time around was a little bit more successful. I was able to kill the brute right off the bat, and then it was just back and forth, waiting for the drones, waiting for the jackals to follow me. Then I decided to use these 3 shots, these remaining shots, to the best of my abilities. Or actually, I guess I only used 1 out of the 3 shots here. And then we were moving on to knock on the door, and hopefully not get our head blown off. So as Dare did not blow our head off, I realized that I had made a crucial mistake. I did not swap out my pistol with 2 shots for a different weapon so I could trade it with Dare, but eventually was able to find a different weapon, get a little bit more ammo, and gave Dare a slightly better weapon to utilize. After dropping down a couple of tunnels, clearing out a few more jackals, basically clearing out the underground of the city, we then moved on to the data hive, or what is now just the drone hive. There are quite a few different drones that will try to take you out here, and so waiting back, letting Dare take care of the majority of the drones seemed to be the name of the game. Now I gave her a carbine to do so, a slightly more accurate weapon, and then I was able to use these catwalks down below and these ladders to avoid a majority of the drones, take out a few of them where I could. Didn't mean that it didn't come without some difficulty and that I wasn't hopping up and down through the catwalks here. But eventually we were able to make it to the final section where there is one last drone that has some overshields. But eventually he was moved out our way as well. I got lucky in this section here because this can be potentially difficult, especially playing on Legendary. The brutes here really didn't do much, and this one was completely distracted by whatever he was doing there with the doors, so I was able to move on. We met our engineer, who were able to save that engineer. Moving on to the kind of open space again, I was just trying to mow through as many of the brutes as I could initially. Now, this was all going great until we reached a section towards the end where if I was just patient enough, I didn't have to die here, but I did. And so you'll see that coming up where I just got trapped in a lot of enemies. And so we were on to round 2, trying to employ different methods. I was not watching my ammo here, so I completely ran out of ammo. And I was down to minuscule health again. Eventually, though, I was able to make it past. After smacking around a few drones, we were then moving on to the final elevator to end this mission. Now, coming up in the final mission of the entire campaign, again, I was able to use Buck as my ally in the back seat of the, or in the turret, of the Warthog. However, we had one more section to make it past. We had to get past these turrets, held up high, and some more brutes. Again, first time around, I always seem to do well until we get to one particular section, and my mistake here was trying to go up to the floating platform and completely getting destroyed. Now, I had a clutch moment here where I was able to just kind of hold back, get some health again after a bit, but let Buck do the majority of the work, throwing grenades. He was really good at spamming the grenades in this section, so I just kind of held out behind the semi-truck, waited for him to work his magic. As I baited a few of the brutes in, it worked to our advantage, and then it was just going back, making sure we mopped up the rest of the enemies, because you cannot progress until you kill absolutely every member of the Covenant, waiting right here for you. So now Buck was going to be my ally in the turret of the Warthog, able to take some fun jumps, mowing through enemies as fast as we could, and also getting destroyed by fuel rod grunts. Now, this grunt had it out for me. Normally, I do not struggle with this section here, but oh my goodness, it was just a couple of trial and error moments. And then I was able to let Buck mow him down. Now, as we continued forward here, you're going to just see a lot of repetitiveness. So this provides me with a good opportunity to just kind of talk about some of the most difficult sections and also just the fun that I had with this. I've been recording a few different Halo videos in the meantime, just trying to figure out, what would be some things that would really challenge me. Now, there are the classics, right? Lasso challenges, things that other people have already done, but as far as I could tell, not a whole lot of people have done pistol-only challenges, especially on Legendary. So if you want to continue to see series like these, if you want me to move on to a particular Halo game, let me know in the comments below. I have really enjoyed doing these challenges because it just adds a completely different element to the game. I've played through most of the Halo game, or I should say all of the Halo games, many times on Legendary, but it just adds something different when you limit yourself to the weapons that you can use and how you play the game. In this section here, using the Gauss Hog and everything, it's not much different than how the game would play normally. The final section did get a little bit difficult, only being able to use the pistol, but here I picked up rocket launchers, I picked up other weapons, so that way towards the end I could gear both Buck and Dare up with those rocket launchers. Helped out a ton. I did skip the Scorpion tank here because otherwise we would just be left with a machine gun, so staying in the Gauss Hog ensured that we would have a slightly more powerful weapon because I cannot use the tank cannon. Did die a few times here on the bridge, but for the most part, I actually had a pretty successful Legendary run here on the bridge. And I was basically just letting Buck take care of the Banshees, the Ghosts, everything else, letting him have a field day here. As I mentioned before, there's a lot that I love about Halo 3 ODST. So in particular, if you have any challenges for me to try on Halo 3 ODST, I would be down for it. I love playing it through. As I mentioned before, it just has a slightly different vibe than the rest of the Halo games. Love the direction that they went with it. And I can't wait to see if they continue this trend with either DLC for Halo Infinite or other Halo games in the future. I really feel like they struck a chord with some of these kind of branching out games and scenarios, Halo 3 ODST being one of those, Halo Reach being probably one of the most popular Halo games. Like if you had never played Halo before, you played Halo Reach. It gave you so much customization, and these games paved the way for that creativity. So in this last section here, I knew we were nearing the end. I may have gotten a little bit risky here with just kind of going forward, not really waiting for the fuel rod shots to go past. And you'll see that here where I just get one-shotted by a fuel rod shot because I was not patient. I was just kind of hopping around, seeing what I could do. So I decided to be a little bit more patient, bide my time. And then we're moving on to a couple of the final Phantoms that were going to come through. Wave 2 here, I was able to pop off a few shots, but it is difficult from long range to hit those pistol shots. So as I continued to bide my time, wait for the Jackals to kind of get to their designated areas, it did make it a little bit easier when trying to take out the snipers. When it came to the final Phantom, we just had some jetpack brutes to take out. As they charged the area and as I equipped Dare and Buck up with the rocket launchers, helped out a ton. So I was able just to kind of wait out in the back, watch the fireworks, and eventually we were just down to the last couple of brutes. I was so happy that I was the one that was able to take out the Chieftain here. Got a quick headshot off. And we were golden. From there, we had our last few brutes that we were ready to take out. Got to watch them get absolutely destroyed. And then we were waiting for our allies. Coming in hot in the Phantom, this led us to the end of the game. I absolutely love this challenge. Although this is a very long video, I want to thank you, those that watched to the very end. Of course, I'm getting better at commentating here. These are just my first few recordings, get my feet wet, kind of understand what I like, what I don't like. So if you have any suggestions down below, if you have any editing tips, please let me know. I love reading through those, love reading through the comments as well, seeing what people enjoy. And I'm more than happy to take some suggestions for other challenges for Halo games. So please let me know in the comments below what you would like me to do next, what you would like to see, the challenges you want me to try to complete. And I'll see you all next time.